Almost live. We are good to go. You have the floor.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Carter, and I am the VP of Marketing and Sales for Volhard Dog Nutrition. I am very excited to be with you all today, whether you're watching this for the first time or for the 100th time and are sick of me. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to share with you some information about Volhard Dog Nutrition. I'm not sure if some of you have heard of us or some of you may be hearing about us for the first time. Either way, I think that over the course of the next half an hour or so to an hour, we can talk about the benefits of feeding a fresh diet, the benefits of switching your dog from 100% processed food to something else, or freshening that diet that you currently feed, and where Volhard may fit into that for you based on your lifestyle and how much time you have and the things that you want for your dog, because ultimately your dog is your baby and you get to decide as the pet parent, what happens to that dog over the course of its life, whether that's what vaccinations you allow to happen to your dog, or what types of chemicals you use in and around your dog, what type of modalities that you use to heal your dog, and ultimately what goes into your dog's mouth. One of the most important things that happens for some of you once a day, for some of you twice a day, and for some of you with dogs that are struggling maybe up to 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So you can see how much nutrition plays a huge role in no matter what you choose for your dog, because they are repetitively eating whatever you put in front of them multiple times during the day. So this is a great opportunity for you. And all I ask of you as the listener, the watcher today, is to keep your mind open. Use this opportunity to learn something, even if it's something that you choose ultimately not to do. At least you've allowed yourself to learn about the other options that might be out there, that someday with some dog you may have to fall back on. So you just never know. I started, just like all of you did, listening to my veterinarian, listening to my dog trainers, listening to the salesperson at PetSmart or Petco who you hoped would, the one that you thought, why would they steer you wrong? Why would they lie to you? Why would they say something that would hurt my dog? Obviously, we are all trying to do the right thing by our dogs, day in and day out. So why would somebody in a veterinarian's position steer you wrong? And I was there. So I've had many dogs in the course of my life, all different breeds, all different sizes, all different temperaments, all different times in my life where I may or may not have made a good choice in having to care for a dog. But, I tried to do the right thing by that dog. In that time of my life, you only know as much as you know. So I come to you from having been on one side of the fence and then having the opportunity to be open-minded. Some of that was driven by need, and that may be you identifying with me right now because your dog is in some kind of critical trouble, or there's something that you know is just not right. So that may be driving you. There may be a critical need that's happening right now, and you're like, what do I do? So I come to you and ask you to have an open mind and just allow me to share with you what I know, my experiences, what I've learned. And then you, as a consumer and the pet parent, can make an informed decision. And you have some information that will help you decide what is best for you and your dog.
Right.
So I appreciate your time today. And I appreciate Dana Brigman for allowing me to be on her platform. So exciting. Yay!
Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
And congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you. I'm so very excited.
I know. So I'm I'm glad to be at the onset of this thing. So when she becomes famous and too busy for me later
Oh,
on,
no, never.
I have to ask her,
Never
you
have.
know, her,
We've done way too much together over the last few years with all this stuff
true,
for that to happen.
true. You and I have gone down the rabbit hole more than once.
Yep.
Sometimes finding some kind of reward, sometimes turning around and going back out the other way.
Exactly.
What just happened?
Right. Yep. So I'm glad to have you here. And I want you to tell us about, you know, I really want people to hear sort of the history of Volhard, where Wendy started and why she did what she did and how we've gotten to where we are today with such a really amazing product that is not well known yet. So I want you to talk more about all of that.
Sure isn't. So right now, Dana, we have to, you know, I don't know, cone of silence around all these people, because one of the things about Volhard is that it's the best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we keep all of your folks, you know, with this secret so nobody knows? No, just kidding. So we, you know, this is a funny thing, because it is like the best kept secret where we have to have a secret handshake or a decoder ring or something, you know, in order to have access to Volhard, and we're trying to change that. I know what to say. It'll probably self-destruct after 7 seconds. No, just kidding.
Well, I will hear a little bit. You did kind of blur out a little bit, so maybe repeat that.
Oh, I did?
Yes,
Oh, see? That was strategic.
The universe.
I must have just said something super secret, and then
Exactly.
NSA went ahead and just kiboshed it. All right. Well, here we go. History of Volhard dog nutrition. So thanks, Dana, for asking. That's a great question. As most people do not know, this very, very long and complex history, which surrounds Wendy Volhard.
Mm-hmm.
So Wendy Volhard is the founder of Volhard Dog Nutrition, hence the name. I'm sure you guys are following at this point. Wendy Volhard is an extremely interesting human being. So she left her job on Wall Street when her dog got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And she made an informed decision that she was going to switch vocations and come away from Wall Street and work with dogs. And she did this on so many levels. So Wendy Volhard is not just one of these stories that you hear in marketing from other companies. Well, my dog got sick, and so I created this in my kitchen, and now I am a formulator of dog food. There's a lot of that's going around right now, and it's a marketing scheme, guys. Right. It's a marketing scheme. They're playing on your sensitivity, and they want you to identify with them. So they're going to tell you exactly what they think, or their group thinks you want to hear. And that comes across on a number of different levels. Wendy Volhard is very different from that. So what we're talking about is a woman who is an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur who wanted no part of the bells and whistles of fame and fortune. She's a very humble person who really got into this, and this seems very simple, but she got into this because she loves dogs on multiple levels, and she knew that nutrition was a logical outcome to what dogs need help with, and she figured that out because she was a breeder of dogs, large Newfies, and she was a trainer of dogs for the bulk of her adult life. And so she left Wall Street and she got involved with dogs. It was both her and her husband, Jack. She's written 25 books. Her latest book just came out. It is something, Training Dogs for Dummies.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of the
edition.
Dummy series. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So she's written 4 of them now, and the latest one by far is fantastic. And so she is a studier of dog behavior. She is she's a long-term researcher of what dogs need in order to thrive, not just survive every single day. So that a dog can do whatever it wants to do and live it as long as it can in a healthy situation, and really just be a dog, and be healthy in that process.
Be the best version of that dog.
Exactly right. And so I know, like you all out there, none of us like to say goodbye. So we want our dogs to be immortal. And this is the key to dog immortality, is making sure that they stay healthy as long as they can.
Right.
So, some of the things that Wendy noticed right off the bat was that, just like children, if a dog needs something or wants something or doesn't feel good or is not getting enough sleep or is stressed and anxious, what happens to that dog, just like a child, is they cannot focus. They don't behave correctly because they're seeking attention, negative or positive attention. They're seeking attention. And if they're constantly in duress at some point, then certain behaviors are going to show themselves where that dog might not have acted that way if they had been satiated with their needs met. And it follows that hierarchy of needs, same as human beings. If you go to school and you haven't eaten breakfast, you can't focus because you're too focused on how you feel.
Right.
If you have something wrong with you and your leg hurts and you have to go to the gym class, you're not going to be as great in that class. And you're going to do things, you're going to act out because you're trying to get someone to notice that you don't feel good.
Yep.
It's the same with
first person I ever heard that from when I left my corporate America job. I had been in the rescue world for a really long time, but Wendy's the first person who ever put that nutritional piece and how the dog feels with how they behave. And I remember that at she did a whole presentation at a trainers conference many years ago. And I sort of tucked it in the back of my head and thought, yeah, I'm not so sure about all that, right? Because there are a lot of trainers, and sort of the group that I was with was just train the dog, train the dog, train the dog. You can fix anything, just train the dog. And it wasn't until a few years later that I had a dog that I could not get trained. I mean, we tried everything, and I'll tell his story another time, but I was writing up his go home stuff thinking, this is the best we're going to get out of this dog. He has a learning disability, is really kind of where I was. And Wendy's voice came to me from that trainers conference a few years ago, and I thought, let's look at his nutrition. And we wound up sending him to a veterinarian who followed Chinese medicine. And she confirmed everything that kind of was coming back to me from Wendy. We changed that dog's food. And in 3 days, all the training clicked right into place, and he was fantastic. So I digress a little bit, but I wanted to she's the first person who ever put those pieces together. And I think it's because she had a history in training, behavior, and then she went down this wellness path.
So in teasing that part out, so this all did start in Wendy's kitchen. Don't get me wrong. She was in the training community. So she was surrounded by breeders and she was surrounded by trainers. So this is part of this conversation of how Volhard became the mystery company, right? Was because she was embedded in this network, and most of the people that knew her were also in that network. The average person that walked into PetSmart was never going to see Volhard on the shelf. So unless you were in this network of trainers and breeders, her access to her didn't come so easily. And so she, through all of her experience on looking at puppy testing and trying to understand what made puppies healthy, what directed their behaviors, their temperaments, their constitution, all of those things, she started to think about, how do we feed the mother dog so that the offspring come out all the same size, all little healthy puppies. There are no runts. There are no, this one's healthy, that one's weaker. They all come out the same, They all come out healthy. The mom stays healthy. The babies are healthy. And then they go on to do great things.
Right.
And find a forever family. So she started to really look at that. Now, another layer on top of all of this is what I mentioned earlier, which was Wendy did have a dog who became very ill. She started to ask her questions. She was bringing in large breed dogs for breeding from Germany. And in Germany, those dogs were living to 12 and 14 years old. And those dogs in America were living to 5 or 6 years old.
Exactly.
And she said to herself, I have all the genetics from dogs that are living this long, and then they come to America and they're not living this long. What is happening? It's what they're eating.
Yeah.
So she traveled all over Europe. She was influenced by a number of different veterinarians, nutritionists, the farmer that had the farm. She would go talk to that guy and say, how come your dogs are living to 20 years old? What are you feeding? And she went around for years researching what were the oldest dogs in the world, not America, overseas, because she's from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
What are they feeding that's making a difference? And where is the breakdown when it comes to America? And so she was researching in her kitchen ingredients, doing blood work, having her friends who had dogs test the food. And she got to a point where she came up with the formula, and it's the original formula. It's now, the commercial version is called the AM/PM diet, but that was the original formula. And by the way, folks, she gave that whole recipe away in her book, The Holistic Guide for the Healthy Dog. It's still there. So you could make this diet on your own. Not all of us have the time to do that, but you could.
You could.
She made it available. If you should be so inclined, you could make this diet and not spend a cent on food in a dog store. Okay? So she gave it away. Well, what happened from that is word caught fire. And everybody's dogs who were feeding what Wendy was putting out were getting better. And then the pressure came. You need to make this available to more people, not just me and 3 other people.
Right.
And so then she started to look into the commercial processing of her diet to create access. And this was the most important thing. Dogs were the most important thing. So it's about creating access to the food that's easy enough for someone to feed a fresh diet without having to sit in their kitchen and be a chef.
Yep.
If your lifestyle does not dictate that.
Go ahead.
So that's how the nutrition started to spark, right? She came up with this original formula. She started to apply that formula to dogs that she knew were needed. Just to give you an idea, anecdotally, one of her Newfoundlands, it lived till 12. I might have these numbers not exact, but I'm going to tell you double digits, and still in the ring, double digits. So she was showing dogs at the same time. So you can see she's in the show space, she's in the breeder space, she's in the training space, and then she pushed into the nutrition space in order to make sure that these dogs that were training, showing, breeding, that's all working dogs. Those are dogs that are doing above and beyond what yours and mine sitting on the couch is doing. You know, I'm going to go get a sock later. That's going to be my big thing. She needed to make sure these dogs were healthy. And the stress of breeding, the stress on the dog of showing, the stress on the dog of training is very different than your average dog who just goes out in the yard and does nothing. So those were the dogs that she started working with first. Those dogs that were experiencing stress and anxiety and long working days. And she started to see, I'll tell you this, Wendy only produced products based on need, not based on money. So a problem would show itself with a set of dogs somewhere in the country or overseas. And then Wendy would think about that problem and she would create a solution for that problem. The solution was not to make money, not to, sell the company someday to a bigger company or to pioneer her into the entrepreneur,
Right.
hall of fame. It was to fix the dog that was standing in front of her.
Yep.
That's what it was.
Yep.
And she worked with a pet parent. She worked with a trainer. Whoever brought that problem to her, she would work with them to fix that dog.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up, figuring out through, as we all do, as our dogs either become ill acutely or chronically, we learn more through that process than we do when our dogs are just bouncing around healthy, right? So sometimes when you're faced with an ill dog, it makes you think. It makes you dive deeper into the information about nutrition and ask harder questions and rethink decisions and all of those things. I don't wish anybody's dog to be ill, but it does evolve us as people. Just like if your child is ill, you might never understand what that disease might have been, but you do now because you had to.
So I don't want to interrupt your train of thought or
sure,
your
no.
When we do have a dog that stands before us and suddenly they're sick or they're unwell, or one of the questions that I ask is based on your dog's breed and age, are you seeing what you expect to see in their performance, in their activity level, their health, and so on? Why do you think pet parents are resistant to make change? I know people that are terrified of making the switch to a raw diet. And why do you think that that's happening? And then we have this whole conflict with the vets who say, oh my God, you can't be raw, and wanting to feed a prescription diet. What can we say to the pet parents about, what can we do proactively and what can we do when we are unwell?
So it's about a mindset. And so here's my challenge to you all. You can think, and I want you to think about your health and your personal health in the same way, right? Because it's no different. You can be a reactive person and wait until you have a symptom and then go to the doctor and get something to stop that symptom, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go to the root cause of what the symptom is. Sometimes you just put a Band-Aid on the symptom and everything works itself out. Most of us walk around reactive. We're fine, until we're not fine. And then we deal with our not finedness.
Is that a word?
That's my English right there. So you'll remember that word, not finedness. That's my personal word right there.
Love it.
So
I'm writing that down.
It's just easier, right? So it's the same with our dogs. Well, my dog is healthy. Why would I go to the vet? Because my dog's healthy. So we're good. So here's my challenge to you. I'd like you to try to think proactively. What does that mean? That means that we focus on our wellness instead of focusing on our sickness. And we're not waiting for something to happen. We're going to get in front of it. And we're going to make sure nothing happens. We're going to ward off what could happen, right? Think of it this way. Everybody says it's about to be flu season. What do you do differently when you think you're going to catch something from someone? You might wash your hands more. You might not go out in large crowds more. You might take some vitamin C every day or take your vitamins in the morning. All of that is proactive thinking. You're thinking, if I take my vitamin C, my immune system is going to be so strong. Even if I come in contact with someone sick, I'm not going to get it. That's proactive thinking. Mm-hmm. That's what I want you to do with your dogs. This is what makes change so hard. Because you look at your dog and you're doing what you think is the right thing, which could be feeding whatever you're feeding. And there's nothing wrong with your dog that you physically see, not right now. So you go along and you say, I must be doing everything right? Must be doing it right. Okay, well, old age is not kind to any of us. I'm going to tell you, not kind. So it may not show on your dog right now, but just like you, if you were to eat, Fruit Loops every day, at some point when you're in your 60s or 70s, you're going to have digestive issues. Now, it may not show itself until you're 70 and you're willing to accept that, Well, dogs don't live quite as long as we do.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at a dog's life where their seniority starts at 5. At 5.
Terrible, right?
Terrible.
It's terrible. And it shouldn't be.
So if you don't, yeah, and if you're not caring for them in a way that's proactive thinking, wellness, they may start showing that in their seniority, which is 5 years into your relationship with your dog, or sooner, depending on what kind of dog you have.
And so you're hitting on something that I have taken a whole new way of thinking about. When I was in the foster world and rescuing and fostering Great Danes, so much of what I heard was, well, that's just the way it is. That's the breed. The life expectancy is this, or they're predisposed to hip dysplasia, or they're predisposed to DCM, or whatever it may be. And I'm like, now I wish I knew then what I know now, because I would fight very differently far, far in advance.
I agree. So, you originally asked me why it's so hard that people change. And part of that resistance is because they don't think something's wrong. And that's okay. If it's not broken, don't fix it. So that's part of the resistance to change. The next step is thinking proactively about how what I do today affects my dog tomorrow or 3 years from now. And some people don't play that game of chess in life. They just don't. They don't look 2 moves ahead. They're in the moment, and they're okay to be in the moment. And that's okay, as long as you're willing to accept the consequences of not managing risk. And that's okay. We all manage risk differently. So that's part of the resistance. The other part is playing out difficulty in what you mentioned, which is almost bullying in some cases. And I've seen different variations of the level of bullying. I've experienced it for myself.
Me too.
Imagine Wendy Volhard in the 70s being the first person to pioneer a fresh natural diet in the face of every veterinarian saying, you're going to kill your dog. Okay? She's a female in an industry of men. Women were not prevalent. And she's speaking a language they don't want to hear, which is raw food is going to let your dog live longer. Well, veterinarians can't make money off of raw food. You're not buying raw food from veterinarians.
Right.
You are buying what they tell you to buy because they can control the dialogue. And unfortunately, and you may have heard this before, and I hate to bang the drum on it, there's so many things that veterinarians have to learn when they go to school, most of which is how to respond to crisis. They're taught how to respond to crisis. You're going to bring them your dog's going to be sick or hurt. They're going to engage, and they're going to save your dog.
Right.
They don't focus long-term on wellness or nutrition. They just can't cover it. They'd be in school forever. So they focus and prioritize on what we need the vets to do, which is, Hail Mary, save my dog. Please, I have no one else to go to. It's beyond my knowledge. I'm counting on you to save my dog through surgical means, through medicinal means, through whatever that is that you know that I don't know. So some vets should leave the wellness and the nutrition to folks who have decided to focus on that. And there are some veterinarians who are nutritionally focused. You have to seek them out, but they are. And there are some vets that do wellness very well and think proactively, and there are some that don't. So just like a regular physician that you have for you, you have to find the right one. You have to find the one that's truly going to be your partner, the one that you're not afraid to talk to, because you have to talk to them. You can't lie to them. You have to talk to them, because if your dog does need a veterinarian, they need to hear the whole story. And at the time of crisis should not be the story. They should know you and your dog. The dog that's in front of them should be treated as an individual compared to no other dog. And you should have a team of partners, one of which should be your nutritional company, that you can go to and say, these are the troubles I'm having. this is my dog. I want to do this. And you have partners to talk to. Your trainers, like Dana, wellness partners. You need to be able to go to them and say, I would like to learn about this. Can you be my partner in this? And don't expect your veterinarian to be all things. That's the first thing, okay? Right. You have to be able to talk to your vet about feeding raw. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to lie to you. It can be a very intimidating process. Here's what I did. And I'll tell you, so I opened up this whole talk by saying that I used to sit on the same side as you all did. I fed kibble. I apologized to my Chihuahua many years for trying to kill him.
Yep, me too.
I did. Now, I'll tell you this. He lived to be 17 years old despite me. Okay? Because he had a good set of genes and a good disposition, and he just bounced along in life and took the hits where he got them. Not every dog is going to have that good set of genes. Not every dog is going to have that bouncy disposition. And not every dog is going to start off in the same place. Right. So, with that said, he had the right sort of mix going for him. But I fed him kibble. And right before I met Wendy, about 7 years ago now, he was being fed Fromm. Fromm is not a cheap kibble.
That's right.
Fromm is a very expensive kibble, one of which I thought was the best of the best of the best, right. To be honest.
Yep.
You know, I have fed Nutro over the course of my life. That was the best food there was back in the 80s and 90s. Nutro natural foods, that was better than Purina at the time in the way of their ingredients and all of that. I didn't know. Yeah. I was trying to feed the best thing. My dog didn't have a negative reaction to the kibble.
Right.
So, win, right? Well, then I met Wendy. And this is a funny thing. 2 things drove me into the raw space, and I'm going to share that with you. One of which was sickness in my dog, and the other one was meeting somebody who opened my mind up, just like I hope I will do for you to some degree today. Open your mind up and say, wait a minute, there are other options, of which I did not know. Okay. When I had the conversation, when I switched to raw, and we'll go back and we can talk about my dog's issues that prompted me separately. But when I switched to raw, I didn't know what to say to my vet. And I'll be honest with you, my vet really wasn't the problem. It was the techs. The techs who you saw more and first, they're the ones that really would like dog shame you into thinking that, what are you thinking? Like, you're going to kill your dog. Oh my gosh, nobody wants to kill their dog. That's a terrible feeling.
Right.
So here you are in a room. You're already anxious. You're already welling up with, I don't want confrontation. Oh my gosh, I don't want to have to lie to this guy. And so you're sitting there, and this is what I did. And you feel free to steal. I basically looked at my vet, and I said to him, now he is, just so you know what I'm working with here, I live in Central Virginia, and there are just so many vets here. We don't have like a plethora of holistic vets or, shamans running around here waiting to help heal my vet through nature. It's not happening. Right. We have a DVM. That's what we've got. Pick the one that's closest. So I first met him, and I basically walked in, and I said to him, I have switched my dogs to a raw diet. There's a period at the end of that statement, not a question mark. So I just wanted you to know, but it's not up for discussion. That's basically what I said. And while I said that, I sweated to death in that whole process. I was like, what was he going to beat me? Like, I don't understand what I thought was going to happen. Like, was he going to yell at me? Why would I stand there if he was yelling at me? Yeah. But I still sweated. I had if I was a dog, I would have blown a coat. I literally would have blown my coat right in that moment. So I'm standing there sweating, and I told him, and he looked at me, and he was like, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Woo! All right then. I'm on a whole adrenaline rush. I'm like, just give me my bill. I'll pay you $1 million. Just let me get the hell out of here.
Exactly. So,
I mean, it was really like that.
I know. Listen, I have felt the same way. And when I switched to raw years ago, one of the veterinarians actually said to me, well, I think Iams is pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, I've got to go. I've got to find a new vet.
Apples and oranges. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned prescription diets. So here's my challenge to you guys. And I do this myself, just so you know. I would never ask you guys to do something I haven't done myself. Look at the ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay? There is nothing, zero goose egg. There is nothing prescription about prescription food that you buy at the vet.
I know. I used to think prescription.
Not even an herb.
No, I used to think prescription diet meant that it had a prescription medication in it.
Something.
Yeah, which is why I got it from the vet with a prescription, is because it was medicated in some way. And it's crazy.
I thought it's the wonder drug. It's the thing. It's got whatever juju is in the prescription diet, because shame on me. I never looked at the ingredients.
I know.
I trusted my vet. Why would that person lie to me? Why would they make me buy this food if it wasn't going to fix my dog? But I didn't know any better, and I was young, and I just wanted my sick dog to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, I was willing to try it. The problem occurred for me when my dog wouldn't eat the prescription food. That forced me into figuring out how to feed my dog.
Right.
Because now the prescription food wasn't an answer. So now what? So folks, don't take my word for it. Don't take Dana's word for it. Flip the bag of prescription food over, and you find for yourself what is in that food that makes it better than a fresh diet for your dog.
And if you can
think about it,
you're paying for your food for the year.
Exactly. You collar back and you teach me something, and I am open to you teaching me something. So the problem that I had was same problem that I have with foods that are breed specific.
Yeah.
I literally went online and I flipped over the ingredients on what you would feed a Yorkie, what you would feed a Siberian Husky, what you would feed a Weimaraner. And I took the ingredients from those three specific breed-specific foods that all these breeders are out there saying, well, Weimaraners do the best on Taste of the Wild. Why is that? What is Weimaraner specific about Taste of the Wild? Nothing. So, maybe somebody along the way fed their Weimaraner Taste of the Wild and their Weimaraner stopped having diarrhea, so that became the breed-specific version of food. I don't know, folks. But when I flipped over those three different breed foods, it was the same cruddy ingredients in different amounts. There was nothing different between a Yorkie food and a Weimaraner food or a Husky food, except for that Huskies won't eat it. There was no difference. So why is there breed-specific food? It's marketing. They got you. They showed you what you wanted to hear. You wanted to do the best for your little Yorkie, so they made the kibble, little tiny kibbles. They're so cute that your little Yorkie's face could stick it in there, and they told you that this was formulated for a Yorkie's body, which is not internally different than a Husky's body. They're dogs. They're all dogs. They got the same stomach. They got the same small intestine. They got the same size colon. Some taller, some shorter, some fatter, some fluffier. But the needs of a dog are still the needs of a dog. Mm-hmm. So herein, I challenge you. And I challenge you to challenge us about Volhard. Listen, I am willing to answer your hard questions. What makes Volhard a better food for your dog because it's a fresh diet? Because we source ingredients a certain way? Because there's nothing in our food that doesn't have a purpose? Mm-hmm. So I can tell you what I know to be true about why Volhard works. And the reason I can say that, and I can't talk about somebody else's food specifically, is because I haven't done the research that I have done on our food, Volhard food, that I've teased apart the smallest of fibers in the network of what we have for our food. Mm-hmm. So I can speak very confidently about that for you.
And that's one of
people ask me all the time, what about this food versus yours? Well, I don't know somebody else's food the way that I know Volhard. I can just tell you what it is about Volhard.
Right. But even in Wendy's book, she tells you why the ingredients were chosen, why they're there and what they do. And who else does that? You know, I don't know any other company that tells you that. And, you know, most of them, they don't want you to know what that ingredient actually does once it's in the body, you know? So.
Right. And they don't want to linger and spend time with you talking about synthetics or whether that's whole food source. They're not, you're going to call up and you're going to say, how much copper is in this diet? And they're going to give you a number, maybe, if they've third-party tested, they'll give you a number, and they're not going to tell you what form that copper is coming in. They're not going to tell you if it's bioavailable to your dog. That's not going to be a conversation that you have with Purina on the phone. You can't call them up and say, my dog has copper storage disease. I want you to talk to me about how Purina's product is going to still be safe for my dog. They're not going to talk to you about that. They're going to ask you what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're either going to answer you or they're not.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's different for Volhard because we are a family-owned company. You know, we pride ourselves on education and communication. And we are going to be a company for you that over the course of your dog's life, and your dog may be perfectly healthy right now, and I am happy about that. We want to keep your dog healthy. But someday, your dog's going to do something. And I want you to know that you can pick up the phone to Volhard and you can get a person on the phone or you can get a response from us that's going to try to help you. Now, we're not veterinarians. We don't claim to be. So we're not going to give you advice on something a veterinarian needs to do for your dog. We are going to partner with you and we're going to help you from a nutritional perspective that we're going to take the information that you have gotten from your veterinarian, your blood work, your analysis, your whatever you've done, x-rays, ultrasound, we can use that information in partnership with your vet to provide you both with information about the diet that might lead to some relief of symptoms or issues or long-term stabilization of your dog working through disease.
Yeah.
That is the difference with
and that is a huge thing that sets Volhard apart from any other company that I've ever come across is the resources and the access to those resources. So tell us just a little bit more about the food itself. I know it's
Sure.
It's human grade foods. I mean, I could eat it. I don't think I would like it, but I could. And how the manufacturing process goes and the testing of the food itself.
Hold on 1 second. I'm on a call. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Oh, you got to have fun like that. Yay.
Yay. Well, welcome to Zoom. You probably heard my dog's barking at something outside, so it's all good. So tell us a little bit more about the food processing and that, and then we'll move on into your stories about your specific dogs.
Yeah, so thank you. So here's the fun. Follow me down the rabbit hole now. So Volhard Dog Nutrition has 3 diets. So I introduced one to you earlier in this conversation called the AM/PM diet.
Mm-hmm.
That is the original diet that occurred and was brought up. That happened in the 80s. So I want to bring to bear some context for you. Volhard has 3 diets. The first diet of which was created in the 80s. It started in the 70s in her kitchen, became a commercial diet in the 80s. And in the 90s, a second diet was born called Ndf2. And in 2019, we have a new diet that just landed called Rescue. Those are the 3 diets. The 2 original diets, the AM/PM diet and the Ndf2, are original formulas and have not changed since their inception. We don't follow fads. We don't do trends. We have a diet that has worked for 30 or 40 years, and that is the diet that holds fast.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else who follows trends and sort of weirdly leans around the curve every time something changes always ends up to right where Wendy started. So there's that for context. We are a company that has been around for a very long time. So the original diet, the AM/PM diet, is unique. It is a 2-part diet. It is called our separation diet. And it is very kind to senior dogs. It is very kind to dogs who are healing from injury or illness. And it is a great diet for dogs who are having digestive issues, pancreatitis issues, liver enzyme issues, kidney issues. And that is because of the separation. And I'll explain what that means.
Right.
The separation is separating the digestion of carbohydrate from the digestion of protein. And this is a 2-part foundation mix. You need both parts to make the diet whole. In the morning, you feed what is called AM porridge, which looks like oatmeal, for lack of a better suggestion.
Right.
And to that, you add whole milk yogurt and you add a vegetable of your choice. Okay? So you have this oatmeal base, you add a vegetable and whole milk yogurt, you add water to rehydrate the foundation mix, you mix that all together, and then you feed that to your dog. In the evening, there is a separate foundation mix. It's a different color, it's a different texture. It is brown, and it's a very fine grind. And it's brown because there's chicken liver in it. And you know when you draw with crayons, you have all these colors, and then you add brown, and everything's brown. Well, chicken liver is brown, folks. So everything becomes brown.
And the dog does.
So that's why that
it's brown.
Yes. So to that, you add protein, and you get the flexibility of this diet is that you get to choose what protein you add. So if you have dogs that have an aversion to beef or an aversion to chicken or turkey or fish, you can choose what, and you can rotate, and you can create a very flexible diet, yes, for your dog without ever changing the food, which is a wonderful thing. Now, when I say it's a separation diet and why it's easy on digestion is that different ingredients compete in the body for digestion time. So the priority is protein in the body. So if you're feeding protein with carbohydrate, the competition leans toward protein. That means that the vegetable in the diet either gets sped up or slowed down in the process of digestion based on what protein you choose, based on what vegetable you choose. It can change the level and the time of digestion in the body. That can be troublesome for some dogs that are having digestive issues, because if it speeds up the process too fast, you get mucousy stool that is not firm and is not formed. If you have too slow of digestion, things ferment in the dog's body, and you can also get stool that is affected by that fermentation process. To give you an example, if you have too much fruit in a diet that is filled with also protein and carbohydrate, the fruit is the last priority, and it sits in the digestive tract the longest, and it actually becomes slightly dangerous because it ferments and can turn into some level of alcohol. Wow. It's a funny thing what the body does. So for dogs who are elderly, who are having digestive issues, who can't form a stool to save their life for whatever the reason, you've been struggling, this diet is very kind to them because the body can focus only on carbohydrate and vegetable, which are around the same time of digestion and use the same enzymes. And then you can focus later in the evening on protein, and they don't have to compete. There's no competition. There's nothing sitting in the digestive tract waiting to be digested. It's a done deal. And that's a lovely thing. So that's what that AM/PM diet is, and it's really quite functional for the body.
Right.
The Ndf2 diet was the second diet to be born. That was in the 90s. And it is the same ingredients as the AM/PM diet, and it was born out of convenience. Everybody pushed Wendy and said, what if I don't want to have yogurt on hand? What if I don't want to make a vegetable? What if I don't want to be, a chef and do all this? And I don't want to have 2 foundation mixes. My dog is fine. I just want a convenient, fresh diet that I can have 1 foundation mix that are fed twice a day. You add whatever protein. There's still the flexibility of protein. and you feed the same meal twice a day. You add water to rehydrate the dehydrated product, and you feed it. Well, lifestyle-wise, that was much more convenient. So that's how NDF2 was born. Calorically, they are very different, though. So I'll share with you what that is. Even though they have the same ingredients, they are formulated in two different ways, and one does have less protein and does have less carb. This is important information, folks, because if you're working with a dog that is obese, NDF2 may be your diet because it's got less carbohydrate. If you're working with a dog that doesn't need quite as much protein, this may be your diet. This diet is hugely kind to all animals, so it doesn't matter whether they're sick or whether they're senior or whether they're healthy. If your dog can tolerate this diet without issue, it's a great diet for them to use. So these two fall under the Natural Diet Foundation umbrella because the ingredients are very similar. These diets were tested. So like Dana said, you have human grade ingredients where it's appropriate. We have organic ingredients where it's appropriate. We have all of our foods are non-GMO, no matter where we have to go to do that. The vegetables and the grains are non-GMO. They meet AAFCO and NRC requirements to keep your dog alive for the day and exceed that requirement to allow your dog not just to live for the day, but to be whatever your dog wants to be, do whatever your dog needs to do, thrive.
So speak to that just a little bit about the AAFCO requirement. And I always, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what we see in kibble is the minimums. They're meeting minimums.
Yes, it's to keep your dog alive for the day.
Right.
That's what they're formulated to do. And when they're tested, these large companies test their food. They do feeding tests, feeding trials through AAFCO. It is 7 or 8 beagles in a lab setting who do nothing all day. They feed them to see what that food's going to do for them. And they figure out where the minimum requirement is to keep that beagle alive. That beagle never sets foot in grass. That beagle never runs or works. That is a lab dog. So what's very different with our company, Volhard, is that we don't do AAFCO feeding trials. We do not use 8 beagles in a lab to feed our food. Instead, we use dogs of every breed, dogs of every size, dogs living in different regions of the country, dogs of different ages, dogs of different health. We use real dogs that go out and play. We use police dogs. We use working dogs. We use every kind of dog, show dogs. We use them. And then the food is eaten, and we see and we get feedback on how those dogs are appropriating the diet into their working bodies or their couch potato bodies or their, husky body or their Yorkie body, whatever that is. And we get feedback. We get feedback through communication verbally. We get feedback through pictures. We get feedback through blood work, urine, fecal, biofeedback. We get blood work through kinesiology. We get blood work that splits out not only CBC and chems, but looking at thyroid profiles, full thyroid profiles. We're looking at full kidney profiles. We're looking at inflammation blood work. We're looking at vitamin D blood work. We look at not just the surface. And we continually get that information over the course of that dog's life, not just for a 6-week period.
Yeah, and I don't know any other company that can say that. And certainly not.
No, they do AAFCO trials.
Right.
That's what they do.
Certainly not a company that can say they have been doing it for 40 years.
Right.
Right.
So we are formulated for all breeds, all ages, and all different sizes and whatever. We don't have breed-specific foods. We have a dog-specific food that we can then flexibly tailor to the dog that's sitting in front of us.
Right.
That's what we do. So Here is the fun, folks. Here's more testing for you to blow your mind. We have a test and hold procedure. So every ingredient that comes into our plant is tested for E. coli, salmonella, fungus, mold, and listeria. 5 things. If that ingredient does not pass the test, it is not used in our food. If the ingredient passes that test, then we do a batch of food. We do small batches of food, which is then tested again before it leaves the plant as a food going to the public. And this is our test and hold procedure. If it does not pass the test, or if it's not tested, we will not just release food into the general population until we have those certified results. And it is tested for salmonella, E. coli, mold, fungus, and listeria. And it has to pass all those tests. And then it goes into the queue to get to you, the consumer, where you can feed that food safely. We have recently done third-party testing on both the Ndf2 and the AM/PM diets. That is, we ship them a bag of food that is kept as a blind test to the labs. They have no idea what food they're testing. They just test it and get the results. They give us those results, and we get a complete nutritional analysis, which makes us hugely transparent. This is something you can share with your vet. This is something that you can share if you do your own research. And that nutritional analysis tells you exactly what's in our food and how it compares to the standards set forth, the cruddy standards, but standards all the same, set forth by the NRC and AFCO. Mm-hmm. We exceed them. We don't exceed them in an exorbitant way where we put your dog at risk from exceeding them, but we come into a range where we're solidly sure that the amino acid profile in our food allows your dog to do their best to ward off predisposed issues for certain diseases that are amino acid based. Mm-hmm. One of them is DCM. Right. We don't have to add taurine to our food. Synthetic taurine is going to do nothing for your dog. What that does is check a box for the food company that says we did our due diligence of making sure that our crappy product did not bake all the amino acids out of it. So we add a little bit of synthetic taurine to make sure that the levels are so high that some bioavailability may happen to your dog. So here's the difference. I can give you the Volhard amino acid profiles, which show you exactly the building blocks of amino acids that are in that food from whole food sources, nothing synthetic. And if your dog is capable of making taurine, if your dog's not ill, and you can take methionine and cysteine and make taurine inside the dog's body, your dog will have plenty of taurine. I don't need to add synthetic taurine to my food. Right. And I certainly don't need to add it as a knee-jerk reaction to everybody's panic to DCM. Mm-hmm. When DCM happened, I went through and I teased out the fibers. Remember, I said that to you. And I asked the hard questions, and we did the hard testing to make sure that our diets met what we needed them to meet. We do a ton of testing, folks. We do a ton of testing. No, we do not have a full-time veterinary nutritionist on our staff. I'm going to tell you why. Because there's nothing for them to do most of the time. And we're not going to pay someone a 6-figure salary and charge you a ton of money for the food or take it away from the ingredients of our food just to say we have a veterinary nutritionist that is 24/7 on board. Now, I will tell you this. We have a veterinary nutritionist that helps us formulate any product that we make. We have a veterinary nutritionist that I can call up anytime I need and have them look at something or give us some kind of assessment. But no, they're not on our payroll 24/7 for no good reason because we're not formulating 24/7.
So one of my clients actually works for a veterinarian. She's not a vet tech. She's more of an administrative assistant or an executive assistant. And she reached out to me about feeding the Volhard diet. And I said, sure. And long story short, I was just pleased as punch when the veterinarian she works for says, "Now that's a good food." You know, mm-hmm. So yeah, yep. It's fantastic.
Listen, transparency, that's what you want. don't let somebody throw some kind of chitter chatter at you and say, but it doesn't meet this or doesn't meet that. You have to look at the motivation behind all of that. And unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, but there are motivated people who are motivated for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And we're motivated for the right reasons. We're on your dog's team. So I've talked about 2 diets, AM/PM and Ndf2. Ndf2, same ingredients as AM/PM, same foundation mix twice a day. You add protein, water, stir, and you're off to the races. A very convenient diet. The 3rd diet that we have is Rescue. And this came out a year ago, 2019. And Wendy Volhard had been formulating on this diet for 2 years. She was trying to formulate a diet that would help dogs who seem to be suffering tremendously from allergies, sensitivities, pancreatitis, high liver enzymes, diabetes, kidney disease. All of these dogs, and these genuinely, most of them were rescue dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a smattering of multiple dogs inside of them with a lot of variables that we did not know. And with the popularity of adopting a dog from the shelter, you get a mixed bag, folks. You get a lot of variables you just don't know about. You don't know if they were vaginally birthed or whether they had C-section and that dog was privy to its mother's bacterial, good bacteria when it was born. You don't know if that dog was even healthy or the dad was healthy. Right. So you just don't know. All you know is the dog that's sitting in front of you is scratching to death. You don't know, but they're breaking out in hives about everything. You don't know every time they eat this food, something bad happens. They're chronic diarrhea that you can't seem to stop. Your dog, when they change foods, sometimes gets diarrhea because of whatever the difference in the ingredients. But it shouldn't go on for 8 months. And if there's a dog food company out there that says your dog is detoxing for 8 months, your dog's body is trying to tell you that food is not good for them. I'm not saying the food is not good. I'm saying that food is not good for your dog because your response your dog is giving is trying to tell you that. Mm-hmm. So no matter how good the food is, it has to be a good match. So 8 months, your dog should not be detoxing. Do not let anybody tell you that. There is a logical transition that happens where your dog will show some exhibition of detoxing, but it is a short-term thing. It should start to right itself. We say at Volhard, 1 bag of food. 1 bag of food's worth, and you're going to start to see changes. It's not like kibble. You can't throw it on the floor and say, my dog loves that food. Your dog loves that food because kibble is filled with palatants. They're spraying it with things that your dog loves to eat. So they're going to be drawn toward it. Our food is like granola. I will be honest with you. It's like changing from Fruit Loops to granola. Your dog's going to look at you and be like, Karen, I don't know what you put in this bowl.
See, I disagree with that. I have, in all the time I've been doing this, there have been exceptional, and I can count them on one hand, the number of dogs that said, most of them devour it the first time you present it. Most of them. And
I've had a very similar experience, but I have had some dogs who in that first moment go, Karen, you can pick this up. I'm going to starve. Here's Husky. Here where Huskies come in. I'm going to starve myself until you feel really crappy and you put that Fruit Loops back down on the floor, Karen. Put them back down. I'm going to wait you out. And of course, a pet parent's like, oh my God, my dog's not eating this food. Well, there is never, and I challenge you to find the case, never been a case where a dog has starved themselves to death. Okay? Folks, your dog would eat paper if that was the only option versus starving to death. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes we have to be the hard pet parent, and when you take away the Fruit Loops and you put the granola in front of them, about the 3rd week in, they're like, this granola is not really going away, is it? So, this is going to be a meeting of the minds. I will wait you out, Karen. I will wait you out. Fruit Loops. Your dog is not going to starve themselves to death. So, Listen, I make it funny because you will find yourself in this situation at some point where you put that down and your dog goes, nope, not feeling it. Sorry. You may have had that even with kibble. Some kibbles are sprayed very well. Some kibbles, you put them down and the dog's like, ha ha, round. I'm used to the square ones, Karen. Round is not going to work today. I know this is a different food. You cannot sneak it up on me. So listen, dogs are smart. You know, with the pill thing, right? You could put pill, wrap it in cheese, wrap it in bacon. Your dog will unwrap that and spit that pill out. They are smart. They are super smart. So rescue. Now I'm going to tell you this from my own anecdote. I have a non-vegetable fruit dog. Okay. Will not eat vegetables, will not eat fruits. Rescue is all about vegetables. But I'm going to tell you what the secret thing is. Come closer. Pork liver. Pork liver is the secret ingredient in rescue, and it makes vegetables taste delicious, kind of like Velveeta for your kids. So pork liver is delicious. It's very hypoallergenic. So when you have a dog that's sick, there's these beautiful digestible vegetables in here. And I know that some of you are like, my dog won't eat vegetables. I'm telling you, pork liver, Velveeta. I'm telling you. So Velveeta should be paying me for promoting their cover sheet. So we have pork liver in that. It's not a chicken liver base like the other diets. It's got these beautiful, all of our diets have herbs, but Rescue's got beautiful herbs that help to detox the liver, that help to promote antioxidants. And you add whatever protein that you want. It's one foundation mix. You feed twice a day. You add the protein of your choice. So if you have a dog who's having inflammatory issues, chicken is not your friend. You want to go toward beef. You want to go toward a neutral cooling protein. And all of the ingredients in Rescue are formulated energetically along with the fact that they are balanced pH-wise. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into this, you guys. The layering. So you're looking at pH. You're looking at energy. You're looking at Chinese medicine. You're looking at sourcing so that it's non-GMO, that we're not introducing heavy metals and mercuries into an already toxic dog. All of these things are taken into account. They're all tested the same. So Rescue was the last one to come out. And I'm happy to say that my little Yorkie, who you could not, she doesn't eat green things. She eats the Rescue like that. Gone. Licks the stainless steel right off the bowl. So there is hope. There's hope. Yep. And so the only thing that happens that's different on Rescue versus the other diets is that most of the time the people who are feeding Rescue are feeding a sick dog. Yeah. And so there will be some detoxification and some stabilization that does happen. And that takes some time. So you will see, one of the things that you will see with Rescue in the beginning of feeding Rescue is larger stool volume. And that is because there's no grain in Rescue. It is the fiber from the vegetables and live enzymes. And those are going to be nature's broom for a little while. And they're going to be cleaning out all the gunk that has been building up on the cell walls of your digestive tract, your dog, not yours, unless you're eating it, the digestive tract of your dog that's causing leaky gut, that's causing irritability and inflammation on the gut lining and the stomach lining. All of that stuff is going to slough off now. And you're going to have a period of time of detoxification with Rescue, only because of the type of dog that we're targeting to fix.
Right.
So that's going to be a very natural outcome. And we can work with you on that, on what that looks like and to help you not be afraid. Some dogs in the beginning of eating Rescue, you will see some of the vegetables coming through. That is allowing the vegetables to rehydrate a little bit longer. It's a coarser chop. You can actually see the vegetables in Rescue. So for a dog that's been on kibble or for a dog that's having trouble digesting, that's why you're feeding Rescue to begin with, you're going to have to let those vegetables hydrate a little bit longer. We're going to work with you to add other things to the diet, potentially like slippery elm or something that's going to help digestive enzymes that may help aid in your dog getting the most out of that food. But don't be alarmed.
Right.
Those vegetables that you saw in the beginning, give it 3 or 4 weeks, you will not be seeing those vegetables anymore. And that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it tells you you've switched the light on with your dog and they're actually digesting now.
Yeah, especially if they're coming off of kibble to a diet like rescue. The body doesn't even know how to deal with those real foods for a while. It has to learn.
And really, honestly, chemically, what happens and this happens to you as a person, when you don't eat certain foods certain ways, if you don't eat raw lettuce or spinach or those kinds of things, your body does not release the enzymes needed to digest them.
Right.
And so they just shut them off. They go dormant. It's the same thing with your dog. If your dog is not being subjected to certain live enzymes, those enzymes in your dog's body shut off and go dormant. It takes a little bit of time to wave a flag inside the digestive tract and say, oh my goodness, we have live enzymes now. Hey, somebody switch those things back on. And it takes a little time for that to happen.
That's right.
And the bacteria need to build up again. That diversity in your bacteria, the microbiome, all those things, your dog's body comes alive again. When you feed live food, your dog's body starts to wake up and come alive again. And folks, we are living beings. We thrive on living beings. Inside our body, bacteria, we need to have those living beings to stay healthy. So you feed dead food, you turn off systems. You feed live food, you keep the lights on inside that house.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now
I'm going to say one more thing, Dana, and you may not be happy with this statement.
Uh-oh.
So it's okay. You may not be happy.
I can delete you.
You can. You can make this all go away, but I know you won't. If you're not comfortable going from kibble to a fresh diet and feeding raw right off the bat, we understand that.
Yep.
You can cook your dog's meat.
Sorry, UPS showed up and the dogs needed to greet him. So
very important. UPS is a threat.
So start that over and I'll fix the edit.
No problem. So you may not like what I'm about to say, Dana, because you're an avid raw feeder, but it's okay. Don't delete this.
I won't. I promise. And I'm going to tell
your pet parents. Yep. I'm going to tell your pet parents that if you're not comfortable making the jump from completely processed food to fresh food with a raw protein, you can cook the protein. You do not have to rip a Band-Aid off and pick one extreme or the other.
Right.
You can feel very comfortable that one of the beautiful things about Volhard is that we can put the fat, the healthy fat, back into the diet. You can cook your meat, throw away that fat, add your meat and a little bit of water, rehydrate, and it's okay to feed a fresh diet, even if the meat. Now, I'm going to tell you, don't cook the meat till you can bounce it off the wall. You can braise it.
Right.
You can make it brown on the outside, pink on the inside, and then you can add that food and eventually work your way toward raw as you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I can do that. I don't disagree with your statement at all. You get
okay, good. Okay, good. She won't delete it, folks. It's not deleted. But I do want to put you at ease that you don't have to jump ship, especially if you have an immunocompromised dog.
Right.
If you have a dog that's healing from digestive surgery, mouth surgery, you do not want to. This may be in the course of your dog's life. Your dog goes and has a tooth removed. You should cook your food until that heals. Not because the bacteria is going to hurt your dog, but what happens is we want to be kind to our dogs, and the bacterial load, while they're already fighting a healing process, we want to control that so that they can heal as quickly as they can without overdoing the bacterial load in that process. And that's okay, guys. It's okay because your dog is not in a normal situation. They will come back to normal. But if they're not in a normal situation, they've had something removed, in their digestive tract, you want to be kind to them. Let them heal first and then go back to raw. And then they'll be at their 9s without an issue.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
So that was
Is there any more
public service
about, I'll just also add that Volhard has a whole line of supplementation and treats accessible when you go shopping now. There are a lot of treats available and everything is just awesome. So Jennifer, thank you. This has been,
you are very welcome.
A few notes of things that I needed to remember or keep in mind, but this is fantastic. And I think this is going to help a lot of people as they're thinking about making the transition to not only to a raw diet, but ideally in choosing why Volhard makes a lot of sense for everybody. We have options.
It really does. It really does. And there's a lot of variability with Volhard. That's the last thing that I will just leave you with, is that the beauty of this is that you're able to switch proteins, you're able to switch vegetables in the AM/PM diet. You can really tailor this to your dog's need. Remember, feed the dog that's in front of you.
That's right. I say that about training too. Train the dog that stands before you. But not only do they get a great food, they get you and me.
They do. And the one thing that, the beauty of this is that, Dana's your first line, and she's very knowledgeable. She's, certified as a canine nutritionist. She's very knowledgeable and can help you through those processes. But she also has the depth and bench to come back to the company. If something is flying 7 feet above our heads, if we don't know the answer, we will find you an answer.
Yep, I love that. I'm not going anywhere. Volhard is my choice of food. My dogs eat Ndf2. I have a 5-year-old pit bull and 2 senior citizen weenies, one that I think is now 17 years old, and he is still thriving on the Ndf2, and we haven't really seen a need to switch. I would if I felt that I needed to, but they're doing awesome. And I attribute it to when Howie had glaucoma and had his eye surgery a few years ago. He had an eye removed. I was terrified, of course, sending in this little senior to surgery. And of course they did the pre-blood work, to make sure he was okay to go under surgery or under anesthesia. And she came back and she said, his blood work is perfect. She said, I seldom see young dogs with blood work as good as his. So
nice.
Yeah. So it's awesome.
Nice.
Okay. So we can pause here. Do you have